Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of This Week in the XFL. I'm your host, the referee, representing XFL2K.com, the number one source in XFL news. So, hey, we have another week ahead of us. We have a couple news topics to talk about. Nothing huge, but a couple things to discuss. So, first and foremost, we know the XFL's inaugural summer showcase just concluded last Saturday in St. Louis. So one of the rumors going around was, will we hear the team identities at that event? And the answer is no. But we do want to talk about, now that the summer showcases are over, what's next for the league? What are some of the things that we expect to be coming down the pipeline? So, like I said, the summer showcase just wrapped up. I went to the one in Houston. I loved it. I'm kind of disappointed I didn't go to the one in Dallas as well. Hopefully everybody had a chance to attend. Hopefully the league plans on doing this every year, right? Because like I had mentioned in the past, this league is not going to be like the AAF. This league is not going to be like the original XFL. This league has a true opportunity to be successful and last a couple years, if not for a very long time. So I would love to see this event continue on. But like I mentioned, now the events are over, what are some of the things that we should expect, right? So the big thing, like we had mentioned at the top of this, the team identities, right? The logos, the names, the colors, the whole shebang. And we'll talk a little bit about this later on in the video when we discuss the Q&A with Houston team president Brian Michael Cooper from Wednesday night. But, you know, they're coming soon. And from what we understand, they're going to be here by the end of the month. There may be some give and take there, but they are coming soon. So, you know, that's one thing that we're going to be looking forward to. And that's going to be a big announcement. Now, I know a lot of people are upset that we don't have the names yet. But this is the way I look at it. If we don't hear the names until kickoff, but we have good quality football on the field, I'm okay with the wait. I'm perfectly fine with waiting for identities because in all reality, yes, they are important. It's really not as important as the things that are going on in the front office and behind the scenes just to make sure that the quality of the game is good. Right? And that's what it's really all about. Now, I expect the names will be coming soon, but if they aren't, I'm not that upset about it, but I am excited to hear them. You know, next thing, right? And this is, we'll probably see maybe a couple of these before the team identities, but who knows? But, you know, the next thing on the list is signing players, right? So now that the showcase is over, they've evaluated roughly 900 to 1,000 different players that are going to be eligible for the XFL draft. So the first step to be eligible for the draft is getting signed to be eligible, right? So I expect we're going to start seeing some of those names, right? We're already starting to see the league put out some YouTube videos centered around some of these players, right? We saw a video around Trent Richardson. We saw a Jeremiah Spice video, which we actually did a piece on him a couple weeks back when he was at the event in Los Angeles. So that's pretty cool to see. And there's been a couple other videos. I think there might be a Hakeem Nicks video and maybe a few others, but so I expect those guys to absolutely be signed. Like we had mentioned before, a lot of the players, if not all of the players that were at the showcase, the league is already interested in, right? But something else to keep in mind, this is not going to be the full draft pool, right? We're also going to see the league start picking up more players as the NFL starts making their final cuts going into September, right? Which again makes October a perfect time for the XFL draft, but that's something that we're going to start seeing. And to me, that's exciting. Now, I remember back months ago when there was, I don't know if it was a rumor or a joke put on a semi-league Facebook page about one of their players was signed to the XFL. And it wasn't a big name player, it wasn't a star or household name or anything like that, but it was exciting. And now we're getting to the point where we're really going to see who the players are going to be. We're not going to know where they're at. We still don't have any information on if tier 1 quarterbacks are going to be assigned or in the draft or how the draft is going to be structured. But we're going to find out soon, right? And that, to me, is pretty dang cool. And the other one that's coming up, and this is probably going to happen before we hear all of the signees, is the official rule book. And again, we know a lot of the rules they're testing, right? Between the spring league and the different events that they've done at the showcases, we have a good idea of what the new XFL is going to look like. But you know what? It's not final yet. There still could be some changes. They're still tinkering, right? So nothing is finalized here. But when you look at the whole scheme of things, you get a pretty good idea, right? So we have a slightly different kickoff, right? So unlike the AAF, the XFL will have a kickoff, right? But it's going to be more similar to what you see in the Canadian Football League, the CFL, right? So there's going to be a 5-yard halo rule. And, it's going to be a little bit different. The players are going to be lined up pretty close to each other rather than running all the way down the field. And, as Commissioner Luck had stated, a lot of that is to preserve the players, right? There's no reason to have them use all of their leg strength just to run down the field when they could easily just line up against each other and they can't move until that ball is caught, right? And they've also mentioned that they're looking into options of having some type of auditory announcement, right? Maybe a whistle or a bell to notify the teams once the ball is live, right? Because another piece of it is the ball can become live. I believe they were testing around 2-3 seconds on the ground where the other team could touch it without the receiving team touching the ball at all, right? So pretty interesting, a little bit different, right? Similar with the punt returns there. Another one that I think is pretty cool though is the running play clock, right? They've been testing out that 25, 30-second clock. And this would be a running play clock throughout the whole game except for the last 2 minutes of each half. And that's what they're calling the comeback period. And to me, that's pretty cool. We're looking at the fast-paced game. We want high-scoring games, a lot of offense. And how do you do that? You give teams an opportunity to get back in the game, right? And it kind of leads into our next one here is that tiered extra points. When you combine the running play clock, or at least pausing it in that comeback period, with the tiered extra points, you're looking at the potential of a 9-point play, right? So if you're down by 8 points with 30 seconds left, or even 9 points, right? Which by all means in the NFL is pretty impossible to overcome. It has happened, I'm sure. But in the XFL, it makes it a little bit easier, right? Another interesting one, keeping on the offense here, is the multiple forward passes, right? So we're not just talking 2. You can have as many as you want. Now, it's going to be hard to have as many as you want, right? Because you really still only have so much time before that defense catches up to you, right? But I could see us getting 2-3 pass plays before it goes down the field, right? And to me, it's just another interesting twist. It's still traditional football, right? But it's just a little bit different. You need to be a little bit different, right? You're not going so far left field like the original XFL. You're just making little changes. And quite honestly, I like these rules a little bit better than the AAF. They're very similar, but the fact that they have kickoffs is pretty good in my book, right? Officiating, we're going to have at least they're looking at a dedicated ball spotter, right? There's no reason to waste time trying to spot the ball. Those players should be able to just get up to the line and play. And with a dedicated ball spotter, they're going to have the ability to do that, or at least the ability to shave some of the wasted time off of the game. Because as we've heard, they're targeting 2 to 2.5 hour games, 3 hours at most, and that is with overtime, right? So to accomplish that with a traditional football game with the same length quarters and not changing the football field size or anything like that, you need to get rid of the time wasting plays, right? They're not valuable to the football fan. We want to see football action. We don't want to see them placing the ball or spotting the ball or finding out what yard it is or looking on a screen to figure it out. And I think that's where also the Sky Ref is going to come in handy as well, right? So again, similar to the AAF, the XFL is looking at making sure there's a ref in the booth as well. And again, I love it, right? It will hopefully make the games move smoothly, keep going, give us only the football action the fans are looking for. So good, sign them up. And the biggest one to me, and this one, at least from reading everybody's comments on the internet and even talking to some folks in the league, the overtime rules, I think, is what has everybody the most intrigued. And I'm excited. I really hope that I get to witness an overtime game live. Now, I expect we'll see one on TV. Now, quite honestly, it's not an optimal situation to go into overtime. You shouldn't want to go into overtime just because, you really want your team to win. I do like a good close game, and I do like to win, but I'm excited to see the actual overtime rules that they're testing play out, right? We've seen them test it at the Spring League. They've done a couple things at the showcases, but if you don't know, if you've been living under a rock, the overtime works like this. So very similar to soccer or hockey, it's going to be shootout style, right? So you're going to have both teams, offense and defense, on the field at the same time at each respective end zone. And for 5 rounds, each team is going to take turns trying to score, right? So each score is worth a point. If you intercept the ball or recover a fumble, that will be a point for the defense, right? So it gives both teams' best players a shot to play. You're not going to see what we saw happen in the NFL postseason, where Patrick Mahomes didn't even step on the field in overtime, right? It just went Brady and company, score, game over. That will not happen in the XFL, but this also helps the league accomplish 2 things. So there's no ties, right? No ties in the league with this. Once it goes to 5 rounds, if it's still a tie, it becomes sudden death. I like that. And 2, like we mentioned, they're trying to keep the games at most under 3 hours, right? And so what we've heard from the league is, so far in testing this, they can wrap up overtime between 5 and 10 minutes, right? So if you have a 2.5 hour game, a 10-minute overtime, you still accomplish your goal, right? So, and after that, after the rule testing, right, the rule book is coming at the end of the summer here. But we're going to have a little bit of drought. We're going to see some training camps, but the big training camp is coming next July here in Houston. And it's going to be, kind of a mock preseason. It's not going to be an official preseason. We don't know if they're going to be open to the public yet. It sounds like maybe some of them will, but not all of them. But all of the teams will be in Houston to hold scrimmages against each other. And we assume the Team 9 will be there as well. And luckily for us, XFL 2K is based in Houston, so we will do our best to cover those events. But, that's going to be the last logical big step before the big day. February 8th, 2020, we have kickoff. The XFL returns. 2 games on the 8th, 2 games on the 9th. All of the games are going to be on either ABC, Fox, FS1, or ESPN. And to me, that's a big deal. When you look at the numbers that the AAF was pulling in on smaller channels, even just Bleacher Report, the app where you're getting 500,000 users. When you look at the numbers they pulled when they were on CBS, the network, not CBS Sports, they pulled in about 2 million. In my mind, I don't think it's too hard for the XFL to accomplish an average of 2 million viewers per game, if not more, because again, like we've heard or discussed, all of the markets the XFL is in are in football cities, more or less. If you look at St. Louis, they had lost their teams, but they still have a fondness for the game of football. But more importantly, is they're all top TV markets. They're all in the top 10 TV markets, and that is good. And then when you add in the fact that half of these games, if not more, are going to be on free over-the-air television, easily streamed via the network applications, there's going to be no miscommunication, no hard times finding the games. People will stumble across these games if they're sitting at home on a Saturday flipping through the channels. Oh, hey, what is football? Football's still going on? I thought the AAF went out of business. What? XFL? I thought they went out of business. Well, I'll have to check it out. And I think you're going to see a lot of that happen come February. We're going to see a lot of new fans. It's kind of crazy to me how big the fan base is already, but you'll see the closer we get to the season, the bigger the fan base will grow. And that's a good segue. Speaking of fan bases, you should click the link down in the description. Join our Discord. It's fun. We have new people joining every day. A lot of like-minded XFL fans just shooting the shit, having a good time. So like I said, click the link down there and let's continue the discussion. So we have a couple other topics here, but if you have any comments on what we just discussed, right? We talked about the showcase. We talked about the things coming. I want to know, do you agree? Do you disagree with my assessment? Did I miss anything? Let us know down in the comments below, or, join the Discord and let us know there as well. So we had the summer showcase. Like I mentioned, it was a blast. We're going to move on to our last two topics here. First, we're going to talk a little bit about XFL DC. Then we're going to move on over to the XFL Houston Q&A with Brian Michael Cooper. So like I said, first we're talking about DC, and the big news for them is they are out looking for a practice facility and some office space. We saw Doug Wally and Pep Hamilton going around touring. So first they went to Bowie State, which is the home of the Bulldogs, right? So it's actually pretty decent venue, capacity of a little bit under 3,000. Stadium opened a new field house in spring 2015, so it has new locker rooms, new shower facilities, things like that. It's about an hour away from their main venue, but that's not so uncommon when you look at some of the practice facilities in the NFL, right? I know the Lions facility is not, by Ford Field by any means. In Arizona, I don't believe it is either. But yeah, I think that would be a nice field. The second one they looked at, though, was the University of Maryland. So Capital One Field at Maryland Stadium. Now, I really like this facility. It's really sharp. It might be a little bit much for a practice facility, but you know what? Go big or go home. That's the one I'm going for. I like it. They're both about the same distance, so there's really nothing there. But when you look at the quality of the field, just how beautiful that stadium is, I would venture to say that's my pick. But hey, I'm sure they're still shopping some other venues, some other office spaces, but we'll keep you in the loop as we learn more. So, the story of the day, or at least the story of the week here, we're talking about the Houston Q&A with team president Brian Michael Cooper. It was held Wednesday at Buffalo Wild Wings here in Houston, and me and my wife had a chance to go down there. We asked a few questions. Some other folks asked some questions as well. And I'd say the attendance was pretty good. Everybody was pretty jovial. The league was very generous. They had purchased some food and snacks for everybody. The event was about an hour and a half. And I'm excited that we're starting to see these events here in Houston. We had saw a couple of these events in Los Angeles. I believe they held one in DC. I could be wrong on that. But it's nice to see that we're getting these in Houston as well. And it sounds like this will not be the last. This is the first of many. Brian Michael Cooper, he had mentioned that, he wants to do a lot of these around the city. We may see some of the coaches or some of the other staff members join these events. But like I said, it was pretty neat. They had idea boards up, so you could write on a sticky note, what do you think the XFL should do to enhance the fan experience, right? Not necessarily the game on the field, but the fan experience. And there were some notes, and we'll leave some images of them in here or have a link down in the description to them. But the first thing that was on everybody's mind, as you can guess, was the team identities. And no, we did not hear the names. We did not get an announcement, unfortunately, but he did reiterate they are coming. But one thing I did want to ask, because we talked about this last week, is in regards to the team names, are we going to get them all at once, right? Or is it going to be a slow trickle? And he seems to think it's going to be, one global announcement, and that's what I like to hear. No more suspense. But, as I had mentioned at the top of this video, even if we don't get them until February 7th, and the game on the field is spectacular, I'm okay. I know you might be angry about that. I know there's some people that want to buy jerseys, t-shirts, hats, things like that. But the important thing to me is the quality of football, the technology around the league, right? And we even touched on the apps and things like that. And there's not really anything official, but they are looking at different partnerships for fantasy football, things like that, gambling possibly as well. But these are things we know. There wasn't anything, huge. There wasn't any earth-shattering news that did come out of this event, but there was a couple things that were intriguing, right? So a big thing that's been on people's mind has been tickets, right? When are we going to see ticket availability, right? We know you can already reserve tickets at XFL.com for $50, but we don't have any finalized ticket prices, and we don't know when we can actually purchase the tickets. But the good news is that sounds like it's also coming soon. And to me, the even better news, we've discussed in the past that their goal is for a family of 4 to be able to come to the game for roughly $100. So roughly $25 a ticket. So we knew what the low end tickets were going to cost, but it also sounds like on the high end, they shouldn't really exceed roughly over $100, right? And that to me is cool, right? I wanted to sit front row, 50-yard line, and I can do that for $100. I'm signed up all day and night. I'm ready. I'm there. I have my reservation for season tickets, and you should too. You should absolutely do it. We need to support this league. But it's nice to see that even the best tickets are affordable. Somebody had actually asked, are there going to be suites and club level seating? And it sounded like, yes, there will be. I don't know if that still falls into the same pricing rules, but if it did, I guarantee you businesses will pick those up in a quick second and give them to clients and maybe their outstanding workers, all sorts of things. Companies like to do things like that. They like to have those suites available. And quite honestly, if that is the case, I'm going to try to get a suite myself. But only time will tell. So that's big news, right? He also talked about his goals for the franchise, right? And the big thing that we heard from him is that he wants this team to be a part of the city, right? He doesn't want only the team to benefit from the city, but he wants the city to benefit from the team, right? Things like community efforts, maybe getting the players together and doing different charity events or going up and cleaning up neighborhoods or working with different youth groups. That's awesome, right? I know we do see a lot of this from the NFL and other leagues, but to me, it's important that the XFL does things like this and does that community outreach to show that they actually do care. They are different than the first XFL, right? And that's a big thing. The other thing that he's looking to do is, like we mentioned before, create a family-friendly environment, right? We've all been to a game where there's that guy behind us who's shouting and maybe screaming expletives, and maybe some of you enjoy that, but there are folks with kids that want to go to a family-friendly atmosphere, right? And beyond that, they're looking at things to enhance fan engagement. So off-field activities, right? Maybe it's a tailgate situation. Maybe it's a post-game situation where kids can run the field, or maybe they have a pet day, or who knows what it may be. But they're looking at different options on how to enhance that experience, right? Because something that they need to overcome is it's so easy for fans to not go to the games. They could easily watch it on TV, right? You're going to get a different experience. You're going to get some of those tracking technologies shown on the TV, right? Some of the different technologies and different camera angles and things like that. And, when the president was asked about that, when Mr. Cooper was asked, does he worry about that? He said, smartphones are really our best friends with this. Everybody has one, and more or less everyone's going to have one at the game, right? So, like I mentioned, there's nothing final with the app, but they do anticipate a lot of the things that you would get out of the TV experience, you will be able to use on your smartphone at the game and get that second experience there as well, right? We don't know what they're going to be. We don't know the specifics, but it does give people a reason now to leave the house, go to the game, right? The tickets are affordable, right? Maybe there's an activity or a giveaway, and it gives you something to do with your kids, maybe, or maybe your girlfriend, or you're freshly married, or even if you want to go alone, you have a whole stadium of friends, right? Because I think the idea is this franchise, it wants to be like a family, right? The players and the fans should all feel like one team, right? And that is going to be important. There is something to having a good home crowd, a crowd that will scream their lungs out, for that team, root them on, get those cheers, right? Speaking of cheers, one of the questions was, will there be cheerleaders in the XFL? I think we already knew this, but when the answer was no, there was a little bit of unsettled people in the room. People were not maybe the happiest, but to me, that's not a big deal. Now, we have heard that they may use marching bands in the XFL, similar to what we see in college. And I love that idea. Maybe it was because I was in marching band, way back when. But I think that would be cool. I think that would be neat, especially if we could see them doing, formations, doing an X formation, spelling out XFL, do one of those cool ones where they walk up and kick a ball all as people, I'm getting out of control here, showing my nerdy side, but I think that would be cooler than cheerleaders, just in my book, right? And again, going back to that family-friendly environment, maybe not cheerleaders. And again, it might be a cost savings measure. I don't think that's the case, though, right? I have seen people argue that online. That's why I bring it up. I don't think that's the case. But like I said, a lot of the things discussed were things that we already knew. But I'll tell you this, if the league does have one of these events in your city, I encourage everyone to go. The league went above and beyond, right? They were giving out prizes. They gave out pins to everyone. Like I said, they had suggestion boards. They want to hear from the fans. So like I said, I recommend everybody go if you can. I look forward to more of these events in Houston. Like I said, it sounds like more are coming. We're going to see more around the league, and you should definitely go. So hey, that's about all we have for you this week. Not the biggest news week, but like I said, we did have some news. But before I let you go, if you didn't know, we're also on Facebook and Twitter. Give us a follow at XFL2KCom. No dot, still trying to get that premium handle. Come on, buddy, answer those DMs. I'll make you a deal that'll make it worth it. And hey, since we're on YouTube, make sure you drop a like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell to see when we're dropping new videos. Some are going to be live and some are going to be pre-recorded just like this one. So until next time, sign you up.